Hello, so you want to make bias strips. These are not bias. These were just cut edge to edge. You can see the selvage. These are just cut edge to edge. You don't always need bias strips. Now, when you're doing binding strips, you need to cut off the selvage. It doesn't need to be particularly neat. Just cut it off. Now, there's two ways to do bias strips. Because what you need is well, I'm going to call it bias strips even though they're not on the bias because that's what we know, right? So you want a long stream of strips. I'm just going to start by talking about how to make the long row of strips because really that's the part that gets you the most in trouble. Because what often happens, I'm going to grab another set of strips here, is that you move along, you're going, and then you realize that, oh my goodness, halfway through, I've got one that looks like this. Or I'm going through and I've got one that looks like this, and they're, you know, topsy-turvy like this. How the heck did I manage to get it not in a straight line but curved like this? Just a second. How did I end up with this? How did I not get such a nice long just strip? So how do I get a nice neat straight strip? There's two ways. You can do right sides together, 90-degree angle, 90-degree angle, like this, right? 90-degree angle, you have it meet. You can leave the selvage on one of them so that you have a guideline, and then when it's like this, you can think of these two sides as pant legs, and then you'll sew across the waistband, not across the crotch, across the waistband, sew across the waistband, sew across the waistband. Okay, now that's one way to do it. If, however, you are like me and you often forget that instruction, sew across the waistband, or you get your strips tied up, or you get, is it right sides together or wrong sides together? These look kind of funny. One is right side up and one is wrong side up. I think I've screwed it up. Here's an easier way. I can't take full credit for this. Part of this is from, I got from Sharon Schomburg's video on perfect binding, but it also works for any kind of binding, including binding like bias binding strips that you use for neckline or something. So I want you to take your strip. I want you to fold one corner down. I want you to take your iron. I want you to iron it. It just takes a second. So now I have a triangle and I have a valley. All right, now I should leave it like this. I chose this fabric so it's really easy to see the wrong side and the right side. I want you to take this fabric now, and I want you can leave the selvage on, take a glue stick or regular washable glue. I happen to have a glue stick readily available, and I want you to go like that. Just go like that. I want you to take your piece of fabric, make sure that the selvage is in the other area. You can line it up, lay it down like that so that you have a continuous row. Right now it looks correct, right? Wrong side, wrong side. It looks good. Set the glue. Now, did I do it right? When I sew, I'm going to open this up and show you. There is a valley. When I sew my strip, I'm going to sew it in this valley, right? I'm going to sew it in the valley. Sew it in the valley. Now, when I open this up, if I open it up like this, here are my pair of pants. Here is my waistband, right? Here is my pair of pants. Here are my pant legs. Here is my sew across the waistband. But by doing it this way, I made it so much easier to remember, right? when I go to my machine, I'm going to sew right here. Then I'm going to clip this off. Now, this is Elmer's washable glue, school glue. It's going to wash out the first time you sew. You put this in the laundry. It'll completely wash out. It will be absolutely no problem. I'm going to go down to my next one. I'm going to clip this off. This is a pretty wide selvage, so if I didn't clip it off, it'll show. It's kind of... I'm going to fold this down. So now I have a nice crease, right? I have a crease right there, right? Like if you can see, I have a crease right there. If I want a stronger crease, I can do it for more. This is a dry iron. And to take my glue, grab another strip of fabric. I do apologize for any quality issues with this video. I am recording with my cell phone. I'm going to line this up so that it makes a long strip, and I'm just going to push it down flat. Set the glue. Now when I turn it over, when I have sewn it, look, it'll look like one big strip. That's how it'll look when it's finished, because I'm going to, again, when I sew, I will stitch in the valley here, trim it over, and it's going to look like this. I will have a big, long strip, a long strip of fabric. Long strip of fabric. So there you go. That's for making bias tape or any other tape. This doesn't happen to be on the bias. This was just on the cross grain because I don't need it on the, I don't need bias for my application, but it will work for bias or whatever, quilt binding. That is the easiest way I have found to do it, because I don't have to remember which one is top, which one is bottom, because the other way would require me, oh yeah, and I don't have to worry about where do I sew, how straight is my stitch, because I'm just going to be stitching in the valley that I created with my iron. It's so simple, because otherwise you'll have to go like this, and you'll either have to draw a line, or you just have to eyeball it at the machine to go from here, from corner to corner. And I just find that, I don't know, maybe you guys are all pro. I kind of suck, I guess. This is just way easy. Plus I can prepare about 100 of these strips at once, and then just sit down at the machine and do about 100 of these at once. So I can prepare all of my strips in advance, then do all of my sewing in advance, and it kind of streamlines it for me. So I hope you find this useful. Maybe when I've sewn all these together, I can show the next step of using the bias tape maker. Thank you. All right, so now I've got about 1 million of these strips made, and I like this many. And I need to join up the strips, because of course you can't just rely on that glue, right? Because I told you it would wash out the first time you washed it. So you actually need to sew the strips. And so what did I tell you? Like, once you have ironed it, you have this valley right here. So I want you, and look, when you do that, now you've got, right, what did I say? You've got your pant legs, right? Here's your leg and here's your leg, and you're going to sew across the waist. You're going to sew across the waist. You're not going to sew across the crotch. You're going to sew across the waist of your pants. Okay? And it doesn't matter what way you do this or whatever. So you could use whatever foot you like. You're going to use a straight stitch, and because I'm not going to back stitch, I'm going to shorten the stitch length quite a bit. All right? And that's it. You see that? That's it. It's right in that valley, so that when I snip it, now I've got your strip. Okay, now I'm not going to snip it every single time because that's just going to waste my time. And I'm going to go down to the next one. And you're just going to do that over and over and over until you have your whole strip made. This is a pretty short stitch length, but it really doesn't matter. You could do it longer, I suppose. This is like a 1.5 because I'm not going to back stitch it. It might be hard for you to see it on the camera, but there is definitely a valley there that you can see and sew in to make it a lot easier on yourself. Now, these do get kind of tangled up. That does get a little bit complicated. Like, all right, so what am I doing? But it doesn't matter. When you're all done, you're gonna clip between them and it'll all work out. It works really well if you have a knee lift. And that's all you do. You just go one to the next to the next. And then when you're all done, I want you to clip not too close. Don't clip it too close, like 3/8 or something inch. And then you'll have a massive, long 2-inch strip. That massive strip. And then you have a massive strip that for this I'm going to make double fold binding, which you could use just a 2-inch strip for like borders or whatever you want. But that's how you make a massive 2-inch strip of anything, or 3-inch or 4-inch, but it's really that simple. So now I've cut about 1 million of these. So when I say cut it, I mean I don't want it too short. And then this piece. That's it. Because when I open it up, see, I want it to be kind of flat. That's it. We're at the very last step, which is to make the actual bias binding. Well, semi-last step, I guess. So the first thing you need to do is, this is our bias binder. It's the 25. It came in a set, this set, and it says 1 inch, 3/4, half, and quarter. Those are the finished sizes. So this finished at 1 inch for the single fold, and then when I fold it again, it finishes at 1/2 inch. This finishes at 3/4 for the single fold, and then you fold it again for the double fold. All right, so this measurement tells you that you need to cut your fabric double. So since I'm using the 25, I cut my fabric 2 inches. That's how I got the 2-inch measurement for that, by the way. Now to get it started, I actually need to trim this, because otherwise it's very hard to get it started through the bias binder. It just doesn't want to go through. So I'm going to cut off this little triangle right here with my handy scissors. It can be a little bit tricky to get it started. So if you look at this, there's a groove here, and then there's a groove here. So that is for using a pin to gently push the fabric through to get it started. So when I push this through to start, and if you look on this side, you want to make sure that as you go through, your fabric is making this lovely U shape. And that's how you know you will have maximum coverage. Oh, it went through. So when I got it through, and I want to make sure that I'm getting it with this U shape on this side, right? And as you see, as it comes out, it's curling. Look at that. It's curling. So I'm going to pin it right here to start so I have something to hold it against. And I'm just going to pull it. Just going to pull it. That's what this is for, to pull it. I'm just going to press. Just going to let the weight and heat of the iron press in that fold. Those are my children back there having way too much fun. He's laughing, by the way. All right. This is single fold. Single fold. It is folded one time. Double fold is like this. Double fold bias binding has been folded once and twice. Now, it's best to do it while it's still warm, but you can also do all of the single fold and then go back and fold it yourself for the double fold. Double fold. Make sure you don't iron your fingers. Double fold. That is double fold. That can be used for all kinds of stuff. That is my favorite thing to use for ties. You know, any kind of binding on dresses, like arm sleeveless dresses or necklines. I use double fold binding. Or right now, this ever so popular masks. Because what it is I'm going to stick my raw edge in there. Here's this piece. See my raw edge? I'm going to stick my raw edge in there and encase it. Okay? And I don't have to do anything. So I stick it in here and I only have to stitch one time. Make sure that you catch the front and the back, so don't stitch it too close. But that's all I have to do. That's what I use my double fold bias binding for, is I stitch it one time, one stitch. If you line it up right, or you pin it or you clip it, or if you have a bias foot on, bias binder foot on your machine, which I don't. And that's it. It's really easy. It's such a handy thing to have bias tape around, right? So there you go.